Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS as part of your strategy session for prelims coverage of ancient and medieval. Today we'll be trying to understand how do we cover ancient medieval, what are the questions which come through, what are the sources, and more than that, what are the important themes. So first let's try to understand what is the basic structure of history in the UPSC exam. When we talk about the whole syllabus, ancient, medieval, modern, art and culture, world history, and post-independence, these are the basic contours. These two are specific to the prelims exam. These two are specific to prelims and mains both, which is that you have modern and art and culture coming in prelims and mains both, while ancient medieval is specific to prelims and world history and post-independence is specific to mains. So you have three types of subjects and three types of coverage. So when we look at the syllabus itself, what we realize is that the UPSC has just written a vague statement, which is history of India and the Indian national movement. Now this means that the question paper will be open-ended and the syllabus itself is very vague. Open in the sense that there is no specific reference to anything except for the Indian national movement, which is a part of modern India itself. Other than that, ancient medieval, they have not told us where to start, where to stop, and generally the basic themes which the UPSC is expecting. In that regard, then we need to understand the number of questions which are coming through, what is the basic nature of the questions, and how do we cover it. Remember one thing for sure, because most of the students get this wrong, which is that you never leave ancient and medieval, because if you do that, you then mess up art and culture. Because art and culture is based on the basic timeline of ancient and medieval. If you start to ignore ancient and medieval, this timeline will not be clear to you. So when I say what is Pala art, when I say what is Mauryan art, you don't even know if Palas comes in early medieval or does it come in ancient. You need to know the basic contours, socio-political and economic, to understand the cultural. So don't do this mistake by ignoring ancient and medieval and then sitting with a book like Nitin Singhania and being clueless about art and culture, because then art and culture will not make any sense to you. So irrespective of the number of questions, which is not more than 6 or 7, including both, which is 3 plus 3, 4 plus 3. The point is, if you leave ancient and medieval, you make your task very difficult for art and culture. So, what is the generic way in which the questions are coming and what is the number? So, between 2015 and 2021, what we see is from 3 questions to 4 questions from medieval, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3. Now it's settled down at 3. And then from ancient, since 1 question came in 2015, it has now reached 3 and 3 has now become a standard thing. Which means that 6 to 7 questions will always come through, meaning 12 to 14 marks worth of questions are there. Now, if you know anything about prelims, you would know that every mark matters, because at the end of the day, you can miss the cutoff by that 1 mark. More than that, out of these 6-7 questions, at least 5 can be answered very easily with basic understanding, which means that you can get 8 to 10 marks easily out of here, because it's a static portion. There's no current affairs. The questions can't be difficult in the sense being of dynamic. So if you have basic coverage of ancient medieval, 5 questions with the help of elimination and logic, you can easily get through. And if you're getting these 10 marks out of the 12, your work is done. Because out of the 100 questions which we are going to get in the exam, we are only attempting 80, because the 20 questions which are left are actually quiz questions. We leave them and we don't play on our ego. The point is, those 20 questions are optional level, don't have to cover. So if we remove those 1 to 2 questions out of ancient and medieval, we still have a sizable portion of questions coming from this area. So you can't leave ancient and medieval, and nobody has ever cleared this exam by leaving ancient and medieval. So now that we have an understanding of how many questions are coming through, we can now understand what is the nature of the questions. What is the UPSC asking? We have different gradation of questions. Some are based on a little bit of difficult vocabulary, but still can be done with basic understanding. Some are based on application. Some are based on conceptual clarity. UPSC is now moving away from factual. So let's look at this question on Jain doctrine, because Jainism and Buddhism is a very, very dear subject to the UPSC. So we'll try to understand that how this question is technically not about Jainism, Buddhism, but about understanding words and vocabulary and how elimination helps us. So it says, which of the following statements are applicable to Jain doctrine? The surest way of annihilating karma is to practice penance. Every object, even the smallest particle, has a soul. Karma is the bane of the soul and must be ended. And then we have 4 options. Now, this question is called an application-based question. Why is it an application-based question? Because it is based on the concept that you don't need to know the Jain doctrine by heart, but you need to apply it. Now, if you've done anything about Jainism, you would know that the second statement is totally correct, because that is the basic Jain ideology. They cannot hurt any organism, and they believe all organisms, particles, everything. That is why they used to wear masks even before COVID, that everything has a soul, and if everything has a soul, they cannot be hurt. So every object, even the smallest particle, has a soul, is a basic ideology in Jainism. Which means that now these 2 options automatically go away, because 2 has to be there. Now, the surest way of annihilating karma is the practice of penance, and karma is the bane of the soul, must be ended. Now, again, this question is not based on historical facts, but understanding what does annihilating and penance mean. Penance means is to punish oneself. Annihilating is to destroy. Now, what Jain ideology again talks about, which is basic thing which will be given in the NCERTs also, anywhere you read, is that karma is considered as a sin. Whatever you do is a sin. You need to purify yourself through penance. That is why Jain doctrine and Jainism itself is a difficult religion. So it talks about, yes, is the surest way of annihilating karma penance? Yes, it is. And if the first statement is correct, the third statement has to be correct, that karma is the bane of the soul, that is the basic ideology, and must be ended. So here the answer is D. This question does not need more knowledge, but needs conceptual clarity. It needs not factual knowledge, but understanding of Jain doctrine. It's an application-based question. It is a difficult question, but can be done through elimination and basic conceptual clarity, which can come through NCERTs and the basic books. Then let's look at a question in which we see that the UPSC again is playing with words, but is a very basic concept when it comes to Vishti, or what is called the terms during the ancient period. With reference to forced labor, Vishti, in India during the Gupta period, which one of the following statements is correct? It was considered a source of income for the state, a sort of tax paid by the people. It was totally absent in Madhya Pradesh and Kathiawar region of the Gupta Empire. Forced laborers were entitled to weekly wages. The eldest son of the laborer was sent as the forced laborer. Now this question, they've already told you what Vishti is. So they are trying to confuse you. Let's look at what are called extreme statements and use logic. It says it is totally absent in Madhya Pradesh. That can never be true. Nothing is totally absent till today in India. So it can't be totally absent in the Gupta period. Then it says forced laborers are entitled to weekly wages. A forced labor is based on debt bondage. Debt bondage means that you owe something to the person. If you owe something to the person and it is a forced labor, then how will you get a wage? So this is also incorrect. Then it says the eldest son of the laborer was sent as a forced laborer. If you are a forced laborer, it is hereditary. Everybody in the family automatically becomes a forced laborer. This is also incorrect. But if you've gone through Gupta Empire, you would automatically know that Vishti was a tax, a sort of tax which was collected by the state in the form of labor from that person if he owes something to the state. This question again is just a dodging tactic used by the examiner because he's just playing with words. So what you saw was a question which was not based on factual knowledge but on conceptual clarity. Then from medieval we have another important question which plays with words. It says the arrival of Babur into India led to introduction of gunpowder in the subcontinent, introduction of arch and dome in the region's architecture, establishment of Timurid dynasty in the region, and you have to find the answer. Now here again, very basically, you need to know what is the difference between introduction and use. You can use something for the first time, but you cannot be the first one to introduce it. And you introduce and use it for the first time is a separate issue altogether. While Babur used gunpowder effectively in the Indian subcontinent for the first time, he did not introduce it because the Vijayanagara state already knew it through Arab merchants. So this statement is incorrect because he did not introduce gunpowder. He actually used gunpowder for the first time effectively. Then, if that is the case, somehow we automatically get the answer, which is the beauty of these questions, that the question itself will give you the answer by knowing the basic concept. Though it says introduction of arch and dome in the region architecture, no. Arch and dome was introduced by the Delhi Sultanate rulers and not by the Mughals. So this is incorrect, and yes, established Timurid dynasty. Through the third statement, they were checking, do you note the understanding that though they are called Mughals, which is a distorted word for Mongols, they're still Timurids, and they used to always identify themselves as the sons of Timur or Timurids. So this question is not difficult. It's just based on basic facts given in standard books and just needs an understanding of vocabulary and a little bit use of logic. Then we also have conceptual questions properly coming through. But in this question again, logic will prevail and you will get the answer automatically. It says, with reference to Indian history, which of the following are an essential elements of a feudal system? So early medieval dynasties, we discussed feudalistic politics. That is what they are referring to. A very centralized political authority and a very weak provincial or local political authority. Emergence of administrative structures based on control and possession of land. Creation of lord-vassal relationship between the feudal lord and his overlord. Now, if you know anything about a feudal relationship, you would know one thing, that feudalism is based on decentralized polity. And it says it is a strong centralized polity with weak provincial. That is technically not true. It is a decentralized polity based with provincial authority being much more stronger. Again, still incorrect question. Now you will know one thing, that the third statement is correct. That is, obviously, lord-vassal relationship is the basis of feudal relationship. Now when you decide if it was introduced in India specifically and even abroad through the process of land. In India, it was introduced by the Satavahanas via the land grant system, got accelerated in the post-Gupta period. So totally correct. So both 2 and 3 is correct. So this question is again not factual. It is a question which is based on basic understanding. And once you go through the books, this kind of basic understanding can automatically be created because it's not difficult. These questions are not difficult. They're based on just conceptual clarity that can be understood. There's a myth that you have to learn everything in history. That is not true. You just have to understand the basic contours of the basic concepts. So, last question which we discussed to understand the nature are these very, very easy basic questions. Free 2 marks, which is Banjaras during the medieval period of Indian history were generally agriculturists, warriors, weavers, traders. Banjaras till today are traders and they're known to be nomadic traders. We have reference to this in Alauddin Khilji's market reforms. And this is again a question which if you leave, you're doing a crime. It's a very easy question in that regard. So based on the nature, we can come to the conclusion that we have conceptual questions. We have questions which are based on basic facts. We have basic questions related to the application of knowledge. And in the end, what we can conclude is, if you have covered the basic topics, you can easily answer these questions. Basic topics. And you only need to have conceptual clarity in the processes. Factual questions will mostly be hit and miss, but application-based knowledge and conceptual questions are now becoming more and more common. So, what are the important themes which you cannot leave for covering ancient and medieval? That is why we are here. First is Indus Valley Civilization, a very important concept when it comes to its polity, when it comes to its religion, writing, and basically its trade, which is very, very important. From here, from time to time, we have been getting at least one question every year. Vedic age again is interesting because there are questions in comparative perspective with Indus Valley and Vedic. That is why these two periods become important. Buddhism, Jainism is a staple. More than that, it is common to art and culture, so you can't leave it again. Maurya, post-Maurya, Gupta, post-Gupta. Administration is specifically important because of the terms. And you need to know the basic structure. So the Pargana, Suba, Sarkar type of question which came through in 2021, that type of question you can get through the basic structure of administrative, provincial and local politics. And then you have terms and chronology. Half of the questions of ancient and medieval actually can be done if you understand the timeline, which is when does Shakas come, when do Kushanas come, when do Indo-Greeks come, when do the Shungas come through, what are the post-Gupta politics or what is the post-Gupta dynasties. The point is that if you're able to create a timeline in your mind that, okay, we have Indus Valley Civilization, Vedic, Mahajanpada, Maurya, post-Maurya, Gupta, post-Gupta. And within post-Maurya, we have the concept of Shunga, then Indo-Greeks, then Shakas, then Kushanas, then Satavahanas. Then you can automatically understand most of the questions and you will be able to answer it. More than that, if you remember these timelines, art and culture will become very, very easy for you. The same is true for medieval, that we need to understand the early medieval polities, the Pala, Pratihara, Rashtrakuta period, because there are a lot of intermixing of dynasties, so you need to know the contemporaries. Delhi Sultanate, Mughal India, staple of medieval India itself, and within that, terms and chronology important. So for example, Zapti, Mansabdari, Ikta, and art and culture is a separate issue altogether. But when we talk about Delhi Sultanate itself and Mughal India, terms become very, very important. And again, administrative structures. Pargana, Suba, Sarkar was actually a question out of Mughal administration. These questions can be done by learning basic facts. Now you need to understand what are the books which you need to read. So for ancient India, we have the class 6th NCERT, new NCERT. R.S. Sharma, India's Ancient Past, is a very important book. This is the NCERT and this is the basic book. Both form a very important duo. This is the foundation, this is the subsidiary book. The R.S. Sharma book is nothing but the old NCERT. So technically, old NCERT you don't need to cover because R.S. Sharma is the old NCERT written via the new publication. Further, for the later coverage of medieval, you have class 7th NCERT and themes in history of India, class 12th part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is for ancient, part 2 is for medieval, and Satish Chandra being the basic book for the medieval India period, history of medieval India. This again is the old NCERT republished by Satish Chandra. So Satish Chandra, R.S. Sharma, if you cover, you automatically are covering old NCERTs. New NCERTs, class 12th, part 1 and 2, very, very important. Part 1 is ancient, part 2 is medieval. Class 7th and 6th, this is medieval India and this is ancient India. So you have these books plus Satish Chandra for medieval and we have R.S. Sharma for ancient. If you're able to cover these books, and I'll tell you how to cover them, you will be able to nail the paper very, very easily. So let's try to understand the strategy of coverage. How do you go about it? This is why we are here. What you do very simply is, you first read the NCERTs, which is the new ones. This becomes your foundation. Once this foundation is done, you then move on to the basic books, which is nothing but Satish and R.S. Sharma. Once you've done this, you have created your major resource base. Now, what do you do? I'm asking you to read these two books. What do you do? What you do simply is, you read the NCERTs and you make notes. I'll tell you how to make notes also, but you have to make notes. Once you've made notes out of the new NCERT, you then move to the basic books. And you add facts to these notes. Thereby, by the end of this process, you have notes out of 2 sources. And because these books take time to cover, generally they will, by making these notes, you don't have to go back to these 2 sources again. So then how do you make notes? The way to make notes is very simple. What you do is that you divide your register into basic sections: political, economic, social, administrative, historical geography, and then miscellaneous. What you do is that when you're reading the NCERT, you note that, okay, I am doing Indus Valley Civilization, I am doing Rigvedic, and you note down through the new NCERTs all the facts related to political in one place. Then what you do is you move to the basic books and then see that if these facts are the same in the basic book, you don't have to add anything. But if you find something other than the NCERT in the basic book, you add further. Do the same for economic, which are economic terms, economic processes, for social terms, administrative, and historical geography of important ports and places. And anything which does not fall in this category goes into this. So when we talk about the basic ideology of covering this whole subject, what we see is that you need to make effective notes. If you're able to make effective notes, you will be able to actually cover it in a very, very efficient way. What it means is that when you are done with your NCERTs, you can easily then create a first repository of facts, then go through the basic books, and then go and add what the new facts are there. Once you've done that, this register becomes your new book and you don't need to read these 2 books. Then a standard question would be, sir, I have done this concept, I have created these registers, I have everything at one place. Then what do I do? Then my suggestion to you would be what is called my 15 minutes strategy. See, remember one thing. History is like a pizza. You can't eat it in one go. You have to divide it into slices which you can eat. So what you do is every day, 15 minutes, just 15 minutes, learn certain facts. For 15 minutes, today I will only learn the administrative terms of Mauryan period. Nothing more. And then in the night 15 minutes, you will check at the end of the day, do you remember the certain facts, and you revise. If you put this 15 and 15 together, this half an hour, throughout the day, you will be able to create a circuit, a type of a loop in which you're learning facts and you're revising them also. More than that, this 100 plus or 200 plus facts can be covered effectively within 15 to 20 days. And once you will do it once, it will take 15-20 days, then it will only take 10 days, then it will only take 7 days, because your memory will keep on increasing. So the point is, to cover ancient medieval for prelims, you have to first go through the basic books. I've already told you the important topics, but remember, you need to create a mechanism through which this 15-minute strategy of going through the facts, and if you have more time, maybe if you have more than 365 days, you can make it half an hour. But 15 minutes for a 1-year strategy, if you can actually do it in a disciplined way, you will see wonders happening. So please do understand that this is a very easy way to cover all of prelims related facts related to ancient and medieval, but it only needs discipline. This has to be done in a repetitive way, and I'm not asking you to learn everything in one day, just slowly but surely, one bite every day. With this, I would like to end this session. Thank you so much. I hope that you were able to understand the basic strategy, the books, the nature of questions, and the syllabus. Thank you. See you in another video. Bye-bye.